Moving on to something else, I'd like to sort of introduce a blast from the past in the form of the Republic. What plans do you have about moving on, taking the country towards being a republic? Do you see it as something that you would like to progress as an issue and achieve something as Prime Minister?
Look, certainly I'm a Republican, so I would like to see us progress towards being a republic. But I also think the reality is the community interest in this topic has not gone away. I think if you walked out and asked people, do you think we should be a republic, people would still say yes. But the community engagement and tempo of debate has certainly cooled since the days of the Republican referendum, which was, of course, lost. I think Australians may re-engage in this question again more fulsomely as they start to contemplate, and I certainly don't wish her any ill, but with Queen Elizabeth, I think people probably will start thinking about beyond Queen Elizabeth, what next for this country, what next for our constitutional arrangements. We should be having that dialogue in a contemporary way. So I think, you know, it's going to come back into community focus. I would be happy as Prime Minister to be there as a participant in that debate, but I actually think the history of the last referendum and why it was lost tells us that people don't want politicians coming along and imposing models on them. They want to feel an organic sense of connection to this debate, and so we would need a step up in community advocacy and community activity.
So you wouldn't be looking to drive it? It would need.
Look, I would be looking to be a participant in it, but I think once you said one political figure, the Prime Minister, was going to drive it, then you are almost immediately starting off on a course that's got failure written all over it, because it will become a partisan question. I think we need the movement for it to be deeper than politicians talking about it. We need community members engaged.
Your predecessors, going back to Kim Beazley, outlined a process to achieve that by having an indicative plebiscite on the model. Then, if there is strong support for a particular model, putting that to a referendum. Is that the sort of approach you would?
Look, I think that there is merit in that approach. I think we saw last time that disputation around the model really, you know, caused the failure of the referendum overall. And so unless you find some ways of getting a sense about what the model's going to be, you're always going to end up in that terrain. For myself, I am not a supporter of the direct election model. I know that it's got community sympathy and it's got an intuitive sense about it that you get to directly choose your president, but I think it would be too distorting to our system of government. I don't think it's the right way forward.
Do you think anything else would get through these days?
Well, you know, I think that's the question to be weighed in the balance, but I certainly am not a supporter of the direct election of a president. I think it would be a distortion to our system of government with consequences that are hard necessarily to quantify and see, but it would seem to me are inevitable. You know, it boils down to a question that was asked during the last Republic debate. I mean, on what basis would one stand for election for a position that is like the Governor-General as we know it? Because by definition we don't seek to have political partisanship or political power projected from that office. So I don't think we would want to introduce a system where you could have a President and a Prime Minister at odds on day-to-day contemporary political questions, with all of the stresses and strains that that could put in our system.
The other referendum question potentially on the horizon is recognition of Indigenous Australians in the preamble to the Constitution. You're committed to doing something in that area. Is it likely that that question we can come up with the right form of words within 3 years, so that at the next election that question could be put?
Well, Jenny Macklin's announced as the responsible minister a process here which I think is the appropriate one. We would need to have, you know, a depth of agreement and sentiment around the change. The worst thing would be to put such a proposition to a referendum and have it not carried. And so, you know, I think we can, having seen the statements of Prime Minister Howard, admittedly late in his Prime Ministership, but he committed the Liberal Party to such an approach. We're committed to such an approach. I don't want to define a time frame on it, but I believe we can find a way forward because there is that sort of emerging spirit of goodwill around it. But you would want to be very confident that the question was going to be carried.